Good morning, grade 10s. I hope you guys are doing well and that you are staying safe and staying healthy. I hope you had a good day off yesterday and that you were able to catch up some of your work and have a bit of free time. Today, what we are going to be doing is finding the equation of a straight line. So what we've been doing up until now is they have given us the equation and we have had to draw the graph. And from today, what we are going to do is they are either going to give us the graph or they're going to give us some coordinates, and then we are going to have to determine what the equation of the straight line is. Please remember that when finding the equation of a straight line, you have to use standard form, which is y is equal to ax plus q. And once they have given you the information or the graph and you've then found the value for a and the value for q, your answer needs to be your final equation needs to be written in standard form. So it would be y is equal to whatever the value is for a, x, plus whatever the value is for q. So your final answer must be written in standard form. Please remember that when asked to find the equation of a straight line, they have to give you certain information. And there is 3 ways that you can find the equation of a line, and you would determine which way you're going to use depending on what information they give you. So the 3 ways that can do it is if they either give you the y-intercept, which is your q value, plus one other coordinate. The second way is if they give you the gradient, which is the a value, plus one other coordinate. And the third is if they give you 2 coordinates. So those are the 3 sets of information that they can possibly give you, and depending on what info they give you, you would then decide which method you are going to use. Okay, grade 10s, we are going to move on and do a couple of examples with you. You would have seen in the notes that there are some examples there. I'm going to do a few different ones with you, and then we will move on to some homework. Right, grade 10, so we are going to find the equation of a straight line, and I'm going to do one of each of the 3 types just to get you on your feet. So the first one says, find the equation of the straight line that cuts the y-axis at 3 and intersects the point 2 and 9. Okay, so the first thing that we should see is that our equation y is equal to ax plus q. Now we ask, what have they given us? They tell us that it intersects at 3. So that is our y-intercept, and we know that q is our y-intercept. So our q value is 3, and then they have given us another point 2 and 9. So I'm going to start with my substitution. I'm going to replace my q with my y-intercept. So I've got y is equal to ax, and instead of q, I'm going to put plus 3. From there, I'm going to replace my x and my y value with my coordinate. Remember, in a coordinate, the first is the x, the second is the y. We should know that already. So instead of y, I'm going to put a 9. So I'm going to say 9 is equal to a. Instead of x, I'm going to put a 2 plus 3. And now it's just a simple equation where I'm trying to solve for a. I want to get a on its own. So I'm going to get rid of this plus 3. So to get rid of it, I'm minus 3 from both sides. So minus 3, 9 minus 3 is 6, is equal to, and those 3's cancel out, and I've got a times 2. But now I want a on its own, so the opposite of times 2 would be divide by 2. So what I do to the one side, I do to the other, and I get a is equal to 6 divided by 2, which is 3. So now I've got my a value and I've got my q value. So now I can put those into my equation, and then I have found the equation of my straight line. So therefore, the equation of my straight line is y is equal to, instead of a, I've got a 3x plus, instead of q, I also have a 3. So the equation of my straight line is y is equal to 3x plus 3. Moving on to the second example, it says find the equation of the straight line which has a gradient of -2 and intersects the point 3 and 10. So gradient is -2. Now what you should remember in your equation of a straight line, y is equal to ax plus q, Your A value is your gradient. So we can see here the gradient is -2. And we have another coordinate which they've given us, which is 3 and 10. Remember, the first is your x, the second is your y. And I'm now going to substitute in my gradients instead of a. So I'm going to say y is equal to, instead of a, it's going to be -2x plus q. And q is what I'm trying to find. So my next step is to substitute in my x and my y value from my coordinate. So instead of y, I'm going to put a 10 is equal to -2x. So instead of x, I'm going to put a 3 plus q. So I've got 10 is equal to -2 times 3, which gives me -6 plus q. And from there, I want q on its own, so I need to get rid of everything around it. So I've got -6 there. To get rid of it, I would add 6 to both sides. So 10 plus 6 gives me 16, and now q is all alone, which means I found my a value and I found my q value. So now I can just put them back into my standard form, and that will give me the equation. So therefore, y is equal to, my a is -2x plus my q is 16. And that is the equation of my straight line, -2x plus 16. And then the third one, I've actually done a 2-in-1 here. So the first thing is they have given it graphically. So they've given me a graph and asked me to find the equation of the line. The second thing that you should notice is there's no gradient, the gradient is not given, and the y-intercept is also not given. What they have given me is 2 coordinates. Now you should remember from analytical geometry that we can work out the gradient of a line if we have got 2 coordinates. So that's the first thing that we're going to do. I've already written it here. It says, remember, the gradient of a line is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So that's going to be my starting point. I'm going to work out the gradient of this line. So y2, I'm going to call this my second point and that my first point. Order doesn't really make a difference. y2 is -1 minus y of 1 is 5 over x2 is -2 minus x1 is 1. From there, I've got -1 minus 5 is -6 over -2 minus 1 is -3. And I know that -6 divided by -3 gives me 2. So therefore, my a value is 2. Okay, so now if I go into my straight line formula, y is equal to ax plus q. I've got the a, which is my gradient, and now I just need to use any one of the other 2 points, and I'm going to use the positive one, so 1 and 5. It's just easier for me than working with negatives. And then I'm going to do exactly the same as the second example. The only difference with this one is I first had to work out the gradient, but now I'm going to do exactly the same as the second. So instead of a, I'm going to put a 2 x plus q, and now I want to work out the value of q, so I'm going to have to substitute in the x and the y from the coordinate. So the y is 5 is equal to 2, the x is 1 plus q, so I've got 5 is equal to 2 times 1, which is 2 plus q, and like any simple equation, the goal is to get q on its own. So I'm going to get rid of this to its positive 2, so to get rid of it I must do the opposite, which is minus 2 from both sides. So 5 minus 2 gives me 3 is equal to q. And from there I've got the a value and I've got the q value, so now I can just plug them into my equation, and there I have found the equation of the straight line. So I say y is equal to a, we know, is 2x plus q is 3. So the equation of this graph here is y is equal to 2x plus 3. Okay, grade 10s, I hope those examples helped you and that you understand what you are doing. Moving on to the homework for today. In your textbook, page 139, you're going to do exercise 6, question 1, 2, and 3, you will see some of them, they give you a graph where you need to find the equation of the graph, or some of them they give you, for example, the y-intercept or the gradient and another point, and from that you need to then find the equation. If you're stuck or if you're struggling, please reach out to your teacher. We are here to help you, and we love hearing from you guys. So please, if you need help, don't be shy. I hope you enjoy the rest of your afternoon, and I'll chat to you tomorrow.